This was a review of 157 folks in Chicago, and let's see, 45% of the women and 31% of the men displayed confusion, disorientation, or paranoia. 1965, this was the oldest study that I found. And the researcher Keene, he just concluded that people who are homeless have problems with memory, attention, and perception. 1970 in Skid Row, 200 folks were studied, 36 were found to have some kind of cognitive impairment. 1975, we had 37 folks studied, 50% had some kind of brain damage. Can you imagine if we took this room and half of us, I mean, that is huge. 1988, Los Angeles, 379 guys studied. 1.8 showed severe cognitive impairment. And when you see these small numbers, these small percentages, those are the studies using that MMSE. Using the MMSE would be like me going to the doctor for a fever, and he takes the thermometer off the wall and sticks it on my head. Okay, that it's not sensitive enough to pick up the little tiny changes in temperature. 1990, New Orleans, 30 male veterans. I love this study. 30 male veterans were found to be superior on measures of cognitive efficiency, problem solving, common sense reasoning, and observation of detail. This is the one study that flies in the face of all of the others. So it contradicts all of the others. And what we suspect is that he was dealing with a little bit different population. We don't know quite how he was describing, or how he was defining homelessness, but these guys were doing great. 1993 in Sydney, Australia, 65 guys were studied. 18 had severe cognitive impairment, so that's 27%. 10 had mild impairment. You put those together, that would be 43%. 1996 in Scotland, 136 people studied, and they found a high prevalence of cognitive impairment. 1996, United Kingdom, 80, they called them roofless instead of homeless in the UK. 80 guys were studied. Of those, 62 completed the assessment. 46 had problems. Are we seeing a pattern? Are we seeing a pattern here? And guess what? I haven't even mentioned the state of Maine, huh? So it's not just Maine, it's not just California, it's not just the United States. London, 60 guys. Just a general finding that cognitively not doing so good. 1997 in Orange County, that's where Disneyland is. 24 guys, 50 had attention problems, 33 had memory problems, 24, that's 100%, had a history of head injury. Miami, 33, again a high finding of cognitive impairment. Sydney, 204, 10% cognitive impairment. Rio, that's where the Olympics is going to be pretty soon, right? 330, 15 considered to be impaired. Miami, 60 studied, 80% showed impaired battery performance. 35% showed an impaired mini mental status exam. Wisconsin, this is a dissertation study, 90 guys, 80% found to be cognitively impaired. Glasgow, 266, 82% had cognitive impairment. Toronto, 904 studied, 53% reported brain injury. Another Toronto study, let's see, 49 guys. Mini mental status exam shows 22% with cognitive impairment. In the UK, 55 guys studied, 75 shown to be impaired. And then there was kind of like a summary article that just got published in Lancet. The reason I wanted to include this one is because Lancet is a pretty nice journal. So we're actually starting to have some of this topic starting to filter up into the higher level journals. Here's the summary. I took all the studies, and I don't want to say I used any great sophisticated statistics, because there is a way of doing, it's called a meta-analysis. I did not do a meta-analysis. I just took, of all the studies we just reviewed, and added up how many guys were studied altogether, which was about 2,755. Of those, 41%, and so that includes our studies with the low, tiny percentage where they only use the mini mental status exam. So we're saying that about 41%. That means that if you walk into a homeless shelter and there's 100 people in there, that 40 of them we're saying are cognitively impaired. This is ginormous. Now, if I took out the mini mental status exam stuff, this number is going to go up 50, 60, 70%. Since I now work in the jail, the prison, I can't actually do research. I don't have the permission to do research, but I just could not resist just taking kind of a quick look. Okay, so this is anecdotal information. I just looked at 67 files really quickly just on the computer, not the full entire medical file. Of those, 23 had some kind of documented head injury. So that's 34%. What kind of head injury? Car accidents. Heads going through windshields seems to be very popular among the prison population. Kicked in the head, hit in the head with a pipe, couple of broken jaws, pretty severe, like broken in several places, and falling from a height, like 20 feet or more. And then I was like, well, wait a minute, maybe that's just because I work here and I have this bias. So I just did a really little teeny tiny literature review. And amazingly, in South Wales, which is Australia, 200 inmates were looked at. 82% reported that they had a traumatic brain injury. In Seattle, 69 guys were studied, and 87% reported a traumatic brain injury. Can we just take a minute and just kind of like sigh or something? I don't know what you do after this. So we have an epidemic, and we have an epidemic that is ruining lives. And we have an epidemic that's ruining lives and that very few people are paying attention to. So our meeting today is groundbreaking because I've not been to any kind of a conference, symposium, forum, anything where the words homeless and head injury were in the title of the conference. Can you imagine if we started really working with this? Wouldn't that be kind of neat? So we're all pioneers, all of us in this room.